evening. Tonight on the Urban Debate, we're getting you a special focus, a 90-minute exhaustive focus on India's latest COVID challenge. It's bigger in some states, but it is becoming a challenge in many other states. So the next 90 minutes, we're going to talk about all aspects of it. We'll have political parties, experts, as well as citizen voices to bring you multiple angles and understanding of each aspect. I'm going to start off tonight by talking about Maharashtra, the state that has been on top of the list, that has been registering 50,000, 60,000 cases every day, and how now, because of that constant pressure, its healthcare infrastructure is now crumbling, from overburdened labs to lack of ventilator beds to even a limited oxygen supply, all of that. We're then going to talk about this controversy over not enough vaccine doses in some of the states. At least 5 states, we counted, at least 5 states in the last couple of days have raised this issue, seeking more and more doses from the center, saying they have very limited stock that's going to run out. Maharashtra, for example, has said that they only have stock left for 3 more days. It's a huge center versus states battle. We're going to talk about that. And then the biggest one that impacts your life and my life every day, that impacts our war against coronavirus. While political rallies and melas and large-size gatherings continue unabated, there are curbs being imposed on paper with no action on ground. There are night curfews. There are shops being shut down, individuals being penalized for not wearing masks, being told to wear masks even if they're the only person in cars. Brutality of the police in some cases where individuals have not worn a mask. This contrast isn't acceptable. And it also raises question marks about what exactly is our COVID control policy. Are we missing the big picture intentionally and focusing only on these smaller little things? So without wasting any more time, let's straight away get into it and start off with Maharashtra. Now, here is why it has become a huge cause of concern. Firstly, way too many hotspot cities and districts. Mumbai, Pune, Nasik continue to be on top of the list, and because they're registering 8,000, 10,000 cases every single day, there is now a huge amount of burden even on the medical infrastructure, especially the ventilator beds or the ICU beds. The Pune Municipal Corporation has now sought help from the Indian Army. There is a huge army camp in Pune, a huge army hospital in Pune, and they are now seeking access to that kind of facilities. That obviously goes on to show that we are staring at a big challenge. It doesn't stop there. But first, listen into Maharashtra's health minister.
महाराष्ट्र में चाहे पुणे हो, एक भी वेंटिलेटर बेड नहीं बचा है। मुंबई में कल तक से 5% वेंटिलेटर बेड बचे थे। नागपुर में सिर्फ 3 बचे थे। तो प्लान ऑफ एक्शन क्या है सर? नंबर ऑफ बेड्स बढ़ाए जा रहे हैं, लेकिन केसेस भी उतने ही बढ़ रहे हैं। तो मतलब क्या हमारे पास कोई लॉन्ग टर्म प्लान ऑफ एक्शन है बेड अवेलेबिलिटी के क्राइसिस को रिजॉल्व करने के लिए?
नहीं, बेड्स बढ़ाने की सूचनाएं सभी प्रशासन को दी गई है और बड़े पैमाने पर मुंबई में वेस्ट एंड ईस्टर्न दोनों इसमें 2,000 बेड्स बढ़ाने का निर्णय हुआ है। उसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन एकदम ज़बरदस्त तरीके से फास्टली उसको इम्प्लीमेंट किया जा रहा है। पूना में भी कई हॉस्पिटल्स है कि जिसमें बेड्स बढ़ाए जा रहे हैं। प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल में 500 बेड्स बढ़ाए जा रहे हैं। ससून में कुछ 300 बेड्स बढ़ाए जा रहे हैं। अन्य कई हॉस्पिटल्स है जो बेड्स बढ़ा रहे हैं। लेकिन सिर्फ बेड्स बढ़ाने से नहीं होगा, उसमें स्ट्रिक्टली एडमिशन टू हॉस्पिटल, ये जो सबसे अहम मुद्दा है, ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि वो सेंट्रलाइज होना ज़रूरी है।
The FDA has also foreseen a shortage of oxygen in the coming days. Oxygen, which is extremely crucial for critical patients suffering from the COVID infection. Lab testing has become a huge issue because obviously we're trying to step up our testing, but that's run into a big hurdle. And we've hit the ceiling there because the labs are overburdened. They're now taking 48 hours, 72 hours. Test samples are going missing because there is so much of burden on them. And the minute that happens, viewers, it becomes even more difficult for us to track the spread and quickly act so that we are able to contain it. So what happens next? What is it that we are doing to fix these problems? Could we have anticipated some of this earlier and prepared better? Let's say good evening to Dr. Sameer Dalwai, spokesperson for NCP, and a pediatrician joining us this evening, Dr. Shashank Joshi, Dean Indian College of Physicians at Lilavati Hospital, member of the COVID-19 Task Force in Maharashtra. Rohit Chandavarkar, senior journalist, joins me this evening. And Dr. Arvind Lal, chairman of Dr. Lal Path Labs, also joining us this evening. Thank you so much for all of you. Rohit Chandavarkar, let me start off with you. The big question that everybody has in mind is, well, what were we doing in the last 1 year or say last 6 months since we peaked off? Did we just give up on preparing the healthcare infrastructure, or is this a case of no matter how much we add, we would have still come to this situation?
Well, Tanvi, I think you've hit the nail right on its head right at the beginning. Is this a man-made disaster? That is the question I think the government of Maharashtra has to answer, because there's been total confusion, total chaos about what is exactly happening on the ground, what the government has been planning for, let's say, last 3 to 6 months, and what are the orders that are coming from top and how it is being implemented at the ground level. There is complete confusion on that front. To begin with, I don't know whether the state machinery was prepared to handle a second wave, which is what I think we are expecting or we are experiencing right now. Because what happened, simple question is, what happened to all the jumbo COVID facilities that were set up last year? They were all dismantled. Now coming to the ground situation in a city like Pune now, which has become the hotbed, the biggest hotspot in the country today, with more than 10,000 cases, new cases coming up every day. That is the latest figure today. The district administration, the divisional commissioner, they are not sure about whether they should be deciding what is happening or whether it is the center or it's the state. Nobody is sure about that. I'll tell you why I'm saying this. Just last Sunday, the divisional commissioner of Pune held a big press conference in the evening and rolled out a plan for something called Pune pattern, where he said all facilities, everything will be shut down in Pune for a night curfew from Monday onwards, and 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening, the city will function normally. And it was kind of a mini lockdown or a limited lockdown that he spelled for the city for the next 7 or 8 days. Entire systems, everybody, doctors, shopkeepers, traders, industry, all were prepared for this, because those were the morning headlines on Monday that Pune is going to experience a new pattern of evening lockdown or night lockdown. 2 days after that, we suddenly have the state government announcing that entire Maharashtra will have all shops closed, all traders will not be able to do business, traffic will be limited, many other things happening which were not expected or anticipated, no notice given. There is complete chaos in terms of the availability of certain medicine, like certain injections that are required for those who have got infected already. Those are becoming headlines in Pune city newspapers. I'll just give you some headlines. The deaths in Pune in the last 1 full year have been 5,526. Today's new cases have been 10,226. Pune has about 5,600 people who are infected right now and are expecting maybe some kind of treatment, and they don't know whether the infrastructure is there to give them that support. I'm saying that this kind of a second wave was perhaps expected, because we saw it in Delhi, we saw it in many other parts of the world, maybe in Europe, other places. Was there any preparation done? Was there any planning done? Or were the politicians busy in the local elections?
Right.
The district council elections in Maharashtra, the Gram Panchayat elections in Maharashtra, where crowds were allowed to come and greet politicians, attend the rallies. We saw those rallies. Many stories have been done on those rallies. Also, marriages, weddings, cinema halls were allowed to function. Many other public places were allowed to function. Was there no anticipation that this kind of a thing could happen?
Okay.
Now suddenly there is panic on the ground. And now, there are many questions coming up. Obviously, situation seems like it is very delicate and very dangerous right now, Tanvi.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, the point that you made also about the confusion with orders. Now, one would think that at least a year later, the authorities are clearer about what they want to do and how they want to go about it, whether they want home deliveries to be completely shut, only shut at night, only shut on weekends, should the shops open, should the shops not open. That one aspect, absolutely. The other aspect which we are looking at, and I know the Civic Body Commissioner of Mumbai today said there is no problem with beds. That is correct. There is no problem with regular beds, but there is a problem when it comes to ventilator beds and ICU beds, which is what you will need for critical patients in Pune or Mumbai and even Nasik. Now, so Dr. Shashank Joshi, was there a thought process that maybe once the peak was over, the September high was over, that we wouldn't have to come back to this, and so we, stopped working and building on that infrastructure? Is it why we are staring at this situation today?
No, Tanvi, I think we were very mindful of the fact that a second wave will come. Most people thought that second wave will come between 25th December and 26th of Jan. It got delayed by another 2 or 2.5 months. None of the Mumbai jumbos were dismantled. They were kept intact. But the rapidity and the exponential rise of the current pandemic got people unawares. It is rising in geometric proportion. And even now, 80% of people are asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic, can be managed very efficiently in home or CCC centers. But because the demographic change, because they are from middle class and new-rich class, and they are the less exposed population, they are all trying to seek private beds when they are asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic, and they don't deserve those beds. They would rather give it to somebody who has moderate disease or severe disease. So better triaging needs to be done, better reorganization of bed delivery needs to be done so that the most needy and the most deserving get the beds. And I think that is now happening, and that is what is the first lesson. The second thing which is happening is that the tsunami-like effect which happened in the last 2 weeks has been too fast, too dramatic. And I think that's something which we were probably caught a little off guard. But predominant people, 90% plus, are recovering very well. The case fatality rate, even today, Mumbai reported 10,000 plus cases, only 23 deaths, which is excellent. And I think that is something which is very good. And the most vulnerable groups which are likely to get infected, whether healthcare workers, frontline workers, or the people above 50, have been already in the eligible criteria. I would still urge all governments to ensure that all the eligible senior citizens get vaccinated at the earliest. But that will have an impact after 2 months. So vaccination is not going to impact the current wave. The current wave just needs mandatory zero tolerance for COVID-appropriate behavior, masking, and adherence to COVID-appropriate protocols. And I agree with our journalist friend that all the social gatherings which are occurring did not have any adherence to COVID-appropriate protocols. And that is why people have been caught napping. The other problem is spreading and super spreading. We have a large invisible pool of population, asymptomatic COVID and suspect COVID. And that is still there. And that needs to be contained. And that invisible pool, if it is micro-contained and it sits at home and heals well, we would have then we will be able to contain this surge. The small proportion, out of 10,000, for example, if 22,000 people really need beds, there are beds in Mumbai. Even today, if you see the dashboard, that they are there. And then they will not deteriorate. And then there won't be a shortage for critical beds.
Okay, fair enough. Now, the fact of the matter is that healthcare infrastructure in terms of beds is one. The other challenge that we have, Dr. Lal, is of testing. And obviously, Maharashtra is a state which really needs high level of testing. We have stepped it up significantly. We are clocking on some days beyond 1 lakh tests, 70% of them supposed to be RT-PCR tests. But is there some amount of pressure that we are witnessing to see with the labs? Because we've heard far too many reports about, results not coming on time.
Yes, definitely. This is absolutely the case that the labs now have got a sudden surge of work, and we are not able to cope up with that because we had not been able to build up the capacity. And once the capacity build up, had happened, of course, after that, there was, because of the unlocking, etc., the patients also became less, the testing became less, the positivity became less, and now suddenly there's a surge. And therefore, one has to be very, very prepared. Exactly what my previous two colleagues have said, that you cannot give up your concern over the COVID pandemic, and you have to listen to what the doctors are saying. So the doctors are saying that, well, there is no magic bullet which we have. You have to test, track, isolate, and now we've got vaccination also. But people tend to think that only vaccination is the magic bullet. And what happens to the first three things? Again, my previous speakers have also told you that the masks were thrown away. Unlocking meant exactly, throwing everything away. Even the Kumbh Melas are taking place. The Indo-England cricket test matches were taking place. And it seems that there are two rules in India. One is for the educated class, and when people were being fined by policemen or by home guards for, even the mask came down slightly below our nose, and when we were talking to a patient in the car. And on the other hand, you have political rallies, you have Kumbh Melas, you have farmers' agitations, etc., and nobody has come out with these figures. Like farmers' agitation itself, you had 250 deaths. So the doctrine is on one side. The doctors can do something, but there is something which is an administrative lapse, and somebody has got to say that the buck stops here.
Right.
So where does the buck stop? So that is the whole question. And of course, now talking about the vaccination part, it is, being calculated.
Dr. Lal, I'll come to the vaccination part in just a bit, but if I could just go back to the testing figures, and I'm looking and right now, if we had to look at the two big cities of our country, the powerhouses really economically and otherwise, Delhi and Mumbai. If we look at tests being conducted per million, Delhi is literally doing more than double of what Mumbai is doing. Both as a 7-day average that we are looking at, and of course, when it comes to RT-PCR tests, we are lagging far, far behind. Now, whose responsibility would it have been to build this? How is it that Delhi is managing to, but Mumbai is not?
See, Delhi is, as compared to Bombay, is having lesser amount of patients. Don't forget that. In Maharashtra, the rates of infectivity have become triple, 3 times over the last time. So, and Delhi, fortunately, so far, of course, we are having a surge, but not as bad as Mumbai or Maharashtra. So I think it would be unfair to say that the Bombay labs have let you down. I don't think so. In fact, Bombay labs have been working overtime ever since I can remember. Even when the first surge was there, Bombay was always facing more. So what we would like to recommend is that do not give up RT-PCR testing. There is kind of a myth floating around that many states, I'm not going to name those states, well, they have been conducting majority of the tests by the rapid antigen test, which only detects 30% of the positive cases. So this should be stopped forthwith. You cannot have the correct numbers unless you test all the people who need to be tested by RT-PCR. And then the problem does not stop there. The municipal authorities, the state governments have got to go and track those people, isolate the positive ones, and that is how you're going to contain the pandemic. There's nothing new which has come up. This has been known to us for the last 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Please.
so let me take this to Sameer Dalwai. Sameer Dalwai, 2 aspects where the Maharashtra government must tell us. First, what was our strategy when it came to tackling the second wave? Now, everybody agrees and acknowledges that we knew there would be a second wave. Perhaps the timing was different. Perhaps the speed at which it hit us was different. But what did we do to prepare ourselves for it?
So, good evening, Tanvi. Just let me share with you some numbers on Maharashtra. At level, in the first wave, the positivity rate was about 24.6, now it's 23%. The average number of daily tests in the first wave were about 85,000, now it is 1.6 lakhs. The recovery rate was 71%, it's now about 84%. And the fatality rate across the state from wave 1 was 2.72%. It has come down across the state to 1.31. Now what we are seeing here is there is a very clear divide in the way the pandemic is spreading. We don't see such a big surge in the rural areas or far-flung areas, but we are seeing a much steeper rise within the cities, and that too typically within high-rises where you have these vertical monsters or towers where in a very limited square feet space there are a huge number of people, and you are going to meet people in the elevator, you're going to meet people in the lobby. This is perhaps the reason why we are seeing a huge surge in the high rises or in the society, so to speak, or the buildings of in the cities. Even in the urban areas, you are seeing a bit of a divide. Now, what needs to be done is what we need to understand is that at the moment, vaccination is not the immediate cause. Like you said, it'll take, like Dr. Joshi sir said, it'll take some time. At the moment, we are in the middle of the crisis. Fortunately, the virus, the infection also has shown a difference. There's a higher number of the 20 to 40 years age group bracket catching the infection, because this was the group that was out on the field in the last few weeks or months. Fortunately, we know that the morbidities in them are lesser, and hence the mortality and even the seriousness of the infection is going to be lesser. So like Dr. Joshi sir said, it's very important that the beds which are available, and all of them are from the higher sections of society, so they are going to prefer to go to private hospitals. Every day on a personal level, we are getting calls as doctors to help out some friends and their families. So what we need to understand is that very important thing Dr. Joshi said about triaging. Which are the beds, which are the patients which will occupy the coveted beds, and that can only be done by a very determined, dedicated, sincere medical fraternity. And I would expect that the government does not give too many micro level regulations in that. It should be best be left to the hospitals, to the doctors, the ICU in charges to know how to deal with this.
But the
Because this
government,
is going
for
to
example, in Mumbai, Dr. Dalwai, there is a dashboard that is allocating the beds. They've taken it away as a choice from people any which way. So that's how
Yes,
it
from
goes.
people,
And you
yes,
yourself
right.
are saying
Yes,
you're getting
you're right.
many calls. So is everybody else to say, can you help us? Can you help us get a bed? Now, irrespective of the stats of positivity or mortality, people right now are struggling to get a bed. People right now are queuing up to get their test done, having to wait for hours to get their test done or get their results back for 2 days, 3 days, wondering if they're actually waiting for a call from BMC now or they're going to get a negative report from the test lab. People right now are concerned when the state itself says there's a possible oxygen shortage that we are staring at. Now, when these are the questions, we want to know how are we going to tackle this from here on. It doesn't look like the cases are coming down in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
You're right, Tanvi. Just let me go back to what you said so eloquently. People are waiting. There's this period of waiting for a day or two, whether it'll be positive or no. You hear there's an oxygen shortage, so on and so forth. But while you hear of 10 people waiting for a bed in the city, there are 1,000 who are already got the beds. There are 1,000 who are getting the treatment. And that's exactly what I mean. Let's not only look at the negativities or the negatives and increase or heighten the anxiety, because then what happens, the moment you get a positive report, even if you are asymptomatic, let me share my own story. I have this recurrent sinusitis problem. I have been having for the last couple of days a little bit of a cold. I have come across as a doctor. I do work in the clinic. I had to do my own test. I was in isolation. I'm negative. It took me about 27 hours to get the report. So there is bound to be anxiety. The point is, during that anxiety, if we have a fear psychosis, and if you are going to portray that, then more people who are able to avail of the services are going to rush and clog the system. So it's very important for us to give this message that yes, you may have heard of bed shortage, but that's because a large number of people already have got the facility and they are getting better. And fortunately, I would say by grace of God, or fortunately, the mortality rate, as Dr. Shashank sir said again, is very low for two reasons. One, the virus has mutated. It is not as deadly as it was earlier. Also, let's remember, I mean, why don't we give credit to the medical system? The doctors, the medical system has got smarter. We do know even the GPs who are consulting patients online on the phone have got better at managing them. So the idea is
full credit to the medical system, full credit to the testing labs and the hospitals and all the experts who are working on these plans. Full credit to everybody from this fraternity who's non-stop work for the last 1.5 years, and we don't know how long it's going to continue. The question mark really comes on the policy makers and the deciding factors. Now, let me ask this question before I go back to Rohit, to Dr. Shashank Joshi. Dr. Joshi, what are our options right now to these challenges which may come through? Now, are we looking at ad hoc bringing in of more ventilators and units and staff, hospital staff from other states? What should be our strategy from here on?
So I think we'll keep on adding beds and we'll keep on adding ventilators, oxygen, and we are very mindful of that. But also remember that every wave which comes up will also go down. and I'm an optimist. I feel that currently don't get struck by the numbers. The more you will test, the more will be the numbers. If you are seeing a figure of 10,000, asymptomatic is 80-85%. Then among them, there will be a mild, moderate, and severe category which will be in those 20%. That is around 2,000, of which probably 1,000 people definitely need a bed or 500 people need a bed. How do we triage them better and ensure that each geography, which is a ward room in say Mumbai city or any other city, is able to allocate them the bed after a medical evaluation, as rightfully Dr. Dalwai said. If we are able to do that appropriately, I think we'll be able to mitigate that problem. Yes, we will have issues related to both infrastructure, but more importantly, you rightly pointed out, it is getting the personnel to man that infrastructure, whether it is nursing staff, whether it is medical staff. Also remember, a lot of our medical students who are postgraduates are in their examination year. Their exams will now get postponed. They have their own medical careers. Non-COVID work also we can't ignore. We have cancer patients, we have dialysis patients, we have heart disease patients, we have patients with various other medical conditions. That has to also go on. So currently our infrastructure got a little overburdened because simultaneously COVID work came up very suddenly and non-COVID work was in full swing. So now currently what they have done is they have cancelled all the elective work, but a lot of emergency non-COVID work is also going on, and that cannot be ignored because we don't want mortality to go up there. We need to give care to every person who is having an emergency beyond COVID also. So I think that is where the challenges lie, to rapidly ramp up the infrastructure, the facilities, as well as use telemedicine, tele-ICU, e-Sanjeevani, various other methods to ensure that there is a digital connectivity and some amount of cooperation from people. But I think we need to get a little more smarter, as Dr. Dalwai said, and I think use it intelligently. I'm an optimist. I feel that in 2 to 4 weeks, this wave will also start coming down and we will be in a better position to handle things. But if we need to be ensuring that COVID appropriate protocols and behavior both is also adhered.
Yes.
So there is no point getting this wave down.
Sorry.
And then we go back to square one again.
Yes.
Tanvi, very sorry. Quick comment, please.
Yeah.
Tanvi, can I just make a
Yes,
quick
yes,
comment,
Dr.
please?
Dalwai. Yeah.
So Tanvi, again coming back, I'm not trying to take away the role of the government here, but let's understand this is not the first wave. We have a very good idea, and I'm a practicing doctor, so let me put that side up as well. It's good if the government doesn't go to a micro level to manage this. So let's not look at the micro policies. Let's leave it to the doctors. But the other point also I quickly like to make is let's please stop focusing on Maharashtra and Delhi because the viruses doesn't see regional borders. And what happens in Maharashtra today is bound to happen 15 days later in the rest of the country. Maybe not to the same extent because the congestion may not be so much. Let us learn from Mumbai. I don't think we need to transfer ventilators from one place to the other. Let them be where they are. But let the medical system choose and be in its own wisdom and sincerity, do the best that they can to manage it there. I think that's the best that the government can do at the moment.
Okay. One aspect now, we've covered the healthcare part, which is the infrastructure part. The other, Rohit Chandavarkar, and you mentioned it in your opening comments as well, is the implementation of rules. Now, for example, Maharashtra has come up with this partial lockdown set of rules, but they're not really implementing it on paper, on ground. Wherever they're trying to implement, there is a lot of resistance. Is that something that you're also seeing even in cities like Pune, where people are just so fed up that they don't want to shut down their shops, they don't want to get off the streets?
See, Tanvi, the problem is a typical, a problem that you see in the bureaucracy or in the government setup led by politicians and senior bureaucrats, where you always see this in many other matters also, not just COVID management, that something starts from the top and by the time it trickles down to the ground level in cities like Pune or Nagpur or even Mumbai, parts of Mumbai, local administration starts, doing what they want, especially the police force on the ground, does not necessarily follow what has been told to them by the cabinet or the chief minister's office. For instance, in Pune now, eateries are being closed, asked not to give even parcel service, despite the government saying that eateries will stay open. The government initially said that from Monday to Friday, all shops and trades will stay open during daytime, following the COVID norms. But on the ground level, you see the police force implementing something different. So I think the solution is that there are 2 or 3 things that need to be done. Firstly, I appreciate Dr. Joshi's point, also Dr. Dalwai's point, that the doctors have to take charge. The medical fraternity has to take charge, not the politicians, not the bureaucrats necessarily. Second part is that we have to avoid, patients coming to cities from surrounding areas of district headquarters like Pune. Today, you see this burst in Pune because people from Western Maharashtra, all over, because there is no infrastructure there, are coming to Pune. That half the numbers that you see in Pune, or the half the beds that you see occupied in Pune city hospitals, are because of patients that are coming from surrounding areas. That has to be sorted out. That is point two. And point three is, of course, politicians have to take the initiative in avoiding, all these election gatherings, these, public places, mass gatherings, and even weddings, which become, prestige issues in small towns, especially in rural areas of Pune district, where there is a lot of disposable income, but no awareness about how to follow COVID norms. So, of course, like Dr. Joshi said, we should be optimistic. But firstly, please keep the politicians out. That is what, as media and as educated people we should do. And secondly, everybody has to follow the discipline, and there has to be one central control which tells the state of Maharashtra what to do and what not to do. If the divisional commissioner takes one decision and he is taking that decision because 2 months ago or 2 weeks ago, the state government told all administrators that you should take district level decisions, we will not interfere. He announces that on a Sunday evening for the next 7 days. And 2 days later, there is an order coming from the cabinet from Mumbai which says something totally different. If you see newspapers in Pune, channels in Pune, you will see that even the administrators are confused. The police, are confused. There is total confusion about what to do, what not to do. So I think that has to be avoided. There has to be some kind of an SOP which has to be established for the government setup, for the medical fraternity, and for the common, businessmen and traders and everybody else, so that there is no confusion and there is no fear, like some of the other speakers said. We are not fear-mongering. We have no interest in that. But we are just reflecting, like you are reflecting, the ground reality of, hospitals in Pune and Mumbai. And all these places.
I think one of the biggest signs, for example, from Pune, Rohit, was the fact that the civic body there said that they have now asked even the army hospital to open up and help them out and give them that support. Now, when the political administration turns towards the armed forces for help, things have become really dire and it's completely out of their control, which is why they're looking in that direction. And the other aspect is one announcement today, another day, the next day, which is obviously confusing people. Here in Mumbai, for example, yesterday on day one, shops didn't know that they were not supposed to open up. Non-essential shops were open. There was this whole confusion about why home deliveries are not being allowed. Why should that not be allowed? How is that adding to any kind of infection spread? Now, finally, that clarification has come in that, okay, home deliveries will be allowed 24/7 through the week, even on weekends. So, the series of orders that are coming are adding to the confusion, of course. One last question I wanted to ask Dr. Lal. Again, Dr. Lal, how do we now quickly resolve the burden on the testing system? Because everybody knows and agrees that we need to be testing at a higher number, much higher number. And if we're not able to ramp up our RT-PCR tests, then it becomes difficult to track and contain the infection. So what are the possible quick solutions that we should look at?
The quick solution only is that all the labs which have been given the license to test this COVID-19 should be called back again, and they should actually be asked that what is your optimal capacity? We cannot, jack up our capacity in a matter of hours or days. This has lasted for 1 year. And at that point of time, we should have been called and asked that what are our difficulties for ramping up the testing, etc., etc. And we should have been able to, taken into confidence. And on many of the state governments have also decreased the prices of the tests so much that now we've got no ability for us to buy new machines, to buy, have it done in different places, because it's a minuscule margin. So the government on the one hand wants to ramp up everything, and on the other hand, the state governments, not the central government, I must say, are now very busy in beating each other in lowering the price of the test. So from where do we get those kind of resources in ramping up production? And no production can be ramped up, in a matter of 24 hours or 48 hours. So that's what my answer is.
All right, and I hope the governments and the authorities also take note of it, because if we really need to step up our testing. We need them to actually look at this. Dr. Dalwai, I'm sorry, but I'm completely out of time. I will have to thank all four of you for joining me on part one of the conversation, which was tackling India's biggest COVID challenge, which is Maharashtra, where you're looking at an overburdened healthcare system, you're looking at an overburdened testing system, possible shortage of supply for oxygen, from oxygen actually to even vaccine doses. At least that's what the Maharashtra government is telling us right now. And multiple series of orders that have come in that have just led to chaos and confusion on ground. These are the challenges that face Maharashtra, the state with the highest number of cases on a daily basis, shattering its own past records on every single day. And that continues. It's in a state of a partial lockdown right now, but not a lot of it is actually implemented on ground. The next 1 month is going to be extremely critical. And if we don't get our act together right now, we're in for big, big trouble. Quick break. On the other side, an exclusive conversation with the Chhattisgarh Health Minister, the second worst hit state in our country, their challenges and what the government is planning to do. Stay with me.